Hello, I'm going to show you our workflow in digital media for AVCHD media. The way that we do this is we take our USB card reader, we take the SD card out of the camera, put it in the USB card reader and plug it into the camera. We then move the entire contents. It's important to remember the entire contents. We'll move it to our HD2 drive, or if you have an external FireWire drive that you want to back your media up, you can back it up to that drive as well and transfer it right there. It's important to note that you cannot do this to USB flash drives or to our student temp storage on our edit volume. You cannot do that. Do not put any of your media on our server. Just make sure that you're working locally to your HD2 drive or your FireWire drive. Once you have your card reader plugged in on your HD2 drive or your FireWire drive, you're going to create a folder. This folder I typically name, and what other students typically name, is you place your last name on it and your class number. So for myself, I would place here and call this Messenger, and then a course number is 2030 or 2284. Those are our production classes. This is how I name my file structure. So you have a root file on this hard drive, HD2 or your FireWire drive, and on that folder you're going to open that up and you can create multiple folders inside this one. Typically what I do is I've given an example here of project name, project name. These are the identical folders. These would just be duplicates of each other. But say you have a project where you're doing an interview with someone. This is my interview project. Or this is my final project. It would be identical. All the root contents inside this final project would be the same as interview. So inside my interview folder, I would have a raw footage folder. You can also have a folder for sound effects, for stock footage, for motion graphics projects. You can have multiple folders inside this interview project. What you want to do then is inside your raw footage folder, you want to create subfolders for card 1, 2, and 3. Once these are created, you would transfer accordingly from your USB card reader to card 1. Or if you're on card 2 or card 3 or card 5 or card 7, it doesn't matter. You would create corresponding folders for this AVCHD media. And you would place the video in those folders. Now I know this diagram may not be the greatest in the world, so what I've also done is I'm showing you an example here. This is a project that we have shot in the digital media area, and what you can see here is that we have created folders for our footage. So we have a raw folder, and actually let me make a folder so it matches exactly what's there. So I'm making a raw folder, and then inside my raw folder I'm going to have all my cards. So I have, here's card 1, here's card 2, and actually what this was an interview shot 2 cameras. So what they did was card 1 and card 2 have duplicate numbers after them because that's the second camera. Not the greatest naming scheme, but it works if you know what's going on here. There's also some text information that explains what's going on in this folder. So what you do is you just transferred into this raw card folder. This is the private folder. This private folder is exactly how it is laid off the USB drive. Do not alter this file structure. Don't come in here and just take certain pieces and parts of this. Take everything with you. It's super important to do that. Depending on the nonlinear editor you're working with, you may need this whole folder or you may not need this whole folder. Some programs like Premiere will only read these MTS files, where a program like Final Cut 7 or Final Cut 10 will want to see the whole private folder to do a login transfer. So it's real important when you're media managing to take the entire private folder. So all I've done is copied it from my USB drive into this. And the USB drive is the stick that you plug the SD card in. You're just copying it from there, backing it up onto this thing, and you're taking the entire folder. Now, that's fine, that's great. let's talk about doing a new project with this footage. So what I'm going to do is open up Premiere CS6. And while this is opening, we'll just look again. So all I've done is on my document here. Let me open up my document. You can see I've taken it from the card reader, and I have this raw footage folder, which is right here. And then in there, I've created subfolders, which are demonstrated here. Here are my subfolders. And then inside those subfolders are the private folders. This is exactly how it was recorded off the camera. You can also make better notes of this if you want to call this like camera 2 interviews, or if this was your B-roll card. Anything you want to do, you can rename those folders and be real specific on what's on that card. That will help you keep and be organized. Now let's take a look at Premiere real quick as this opens up, and we'll talk about setting up a new project. When you have Premiere open, all you have to do is click on New Project, and on this there's a couple things to take a look at. The capture format, if you're on HDV, HDV is what you would select. That would be if you're shooting on like a Canon or a Sony Z1U or Sony FX1 or Sony FX1000. You'd want to change that. The other thing you want to change here is location. If you click the Browse button, what you want to do is navigate to this folder. So what I've done is in my Movies folder, just because I'm working from my laptop, I have a folder called 081512 WKMG. These were interviews that we did over there. So what I'm going to do is hit Choose. That way, my media is being stored in that folder. Now, yours typically would say something like HD2 / your folder name / your project name, but I'm working again from my laptop. Then what I'm going to do is going to give it a project name. So this is WKMG Interviews. And then I'm just going to click OK. You'll also see that this location, if you click on Scratch Disks, this should be same as project. So it will write all of your stuff to same as project. Now by default it's the same as project. I was working on a large project that had multiple hard drives, so I was sending stuff to different drives. But for everything that you guys are doing, same as project should work just fine. So I'm going to click OK, and then it's going to say, it's going to give me an error. This is just because of the way I have my system set up right now. Not a big deal, just skip through it. What I'm working with is AVCHD footage. Now, depending on what your camera is set on, by default in digital media, we're setting them up as AVCHD 1080i 30. If you go in there and tweak with the settings, you might end up needing one of these other settings. But by default, everything that I require in my class, and I think the other instructors are requiring in their class, is AVCHD 1080i 30. So I'm just selecting that. And then the other thing that we're selecting under settings here, all this looks fine. Under tracks, let me look at settings one more time. That all looks fine. Under tracks, masters, that looks fine. The only thing I'm going to come in here and change is I'm going to make these mono. All of these standard, I'm just going to make a mono, and I'll explain that in a little bit. So I'm just going to click OK. And this will actually launch my Premiere interface. Now over here in my project window, what I can do is just take my folder here. So what I'm going to do is move this out of the way, and I'm going to take my raw folder here, and I'm going to click and drag just my root raw folder and drop it. And what this is doing now is it's importing those AVCHD files. And there were a lot of files there, so that's why it's taken a little bit. It's 2 cameras. It's over 90 minutes of footage, so it's just taking a few minutes just to get it in here. All right, now that that's done, I get this warning box that says import failure. Don't worry about this, because what it does is it's actually scanned all the cards. and those are files that aren't supported, but it's not a big deal. So now inside my raw footage folder, you can see that it has created and imported all the thumbnails and all the MTS files that were on all of those cards. If you don't like that it just has put these all in one bin, the other thing that you can do is, I'm just going to delete all that raw footage in there. You can move these 4 cards individually, so you can create a new bin here inside Premiere and call it raw footage. You can open up the bin and then take your raw footage cards one at a time. Sorry, working on a laptop. So take raw footage card, gives you the air. So there's card 1, here's card 2, gives you the air. That's okay because all the media is still coming in. So you get the point. So if you want to keep it more organized, instead of throwing all the media in one bin, you can just drag and drop the individual raw folders that you've created, and then that keeps them named here as well. So it should help you keep your media organized. Now if you want to look in these folders, you can just drop them down, and then there's your media. So one other thing that we are talking about is I set that stuff to mono. What you'll see now is the reason I did that is another setting that I've changed up here is under Preferences Audio. This setting I set before I import any of my media, so I should have done that first, but by default I have it set up. Under Audio, it says Default Audio Tracks, it says Mono Media Use File, it says Stereo Media Mono. What I've done, instead of doing Use File, I've changed it to Mono. What that does is, instead of giving me one track that's a stereo track, when I bring this onto a timeline, I now have a true left and right channel. All of the HMC 150s and the cameras, that the NX5Us that we own, all of those will record stereo on 2 channels. So what happens now is I have the true left channel and the true right channel. So if I wanted to eliminate one of the microphones, I can come in here and just drag this audio down, and that will eliminate the audio on that audio track. So that way you don't have to worry about going in there, adding filters, or deleting anything. If you don't want a microphone, you can just bring it down. At this point, you can see that it's in here, it's working. I can double click on a clip, load it up in my viewer, I can scrub through it, mark in and out. All that stuff can now be done inside of Premiere. It is still conforming the files down here on the bottom. It might take it a little bit to get that going, just because these clips are so long, but that's all that's going on here. Alright, I hope this has been helpful, organizing your media, getting you up and running. Thanks for watching.